Hey everyone, welcome back to the Derick podcast. We're in the vault today with a local health coach in St. George. Her name is Kelly Welker. How's it going?
Great. Happy to be here.
Yeah, this will be fun. It'll be, we've done some health ones lately. We've had a couple nurses on, we've had a couple things on, so we'll just kind of expound, but it sounds like more of your expertise would be in some preventative might be the best word.
Right, yeah.
Maybe just being healthy in general.
Yeah. Creating health. That's my goal.
Creating health.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
So do you have a business around this? Like you have a business set up for it?
Business. It's called Castlerock Wellness.
Okay.
And it's just a health and wellness coaching business. I do private coaching and group coaching.
Now, is this like Zoom online? Do you have a brick and mortar? Like, how does this work?
It's just all online.
Okay.
And I have had clients as far away as Mississippi. I've had some in St. George, some up north in Utah. So it can be anywhere.
Cool. In person, anything?
I haven't done any in person. I could if they were local.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. That's cool.
Somebody preferred that. Yeah.
I'm all about people having businesses. So that's awesome.
It's great. I worked as a nurse before, and I always worked for someone else, of course. So this is a new experience for me, having a business.
How long have you had it?
About 1.5 years now.
Awesome.
And it's a real learning curve, setting up a business and everything that goes along with it. But it's been so fun.
Yeah. What does your husband do?
He is retired,
awesome,
but working at a golf course for fun. So he's
Heck
mowing lawns and loving it.
Which one is that? What golf course is that?
Bloomington.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So how long were you a nurse before this?
So for about 35 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So,
I took some time off raising kids.
Okay.
Not too much, just when they were real tiny. And but yeah, about 35 years actually working as a nurse.
Cool. And then in northern Utah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Give me a little background on what your goal is with the business. Maybe a couple experiences you've had with some, you call them clients?
Yeah.
They wouldn't be patients, right?
Yeah,
They'd be clients.
Yeah.
And then let's just kind of get rolling.
Okay.
I'm sure we'll find a rabbit hole or two to jump down.
Can I kind of give you some background how I got to this?
Would love that, yeah.
Okay. Because people might wonder, well, why did you go from a nurse to being a health coach?
Yeah.
But for probably the last 20 years of my nursing career, I worked in either home health or case management. And in those kind of nursing roles, I mainly worked with people who had chronic illnesses, sometimes just one, but often 2 or 3.
Okay.
Things like type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's, cancer, kidney disease. And these were people who were homebound. They only left home to go to their medical appointments. They required help with activities of daily living like bathing and fixing food and things like that.
Yeah.
And they spent most of their day in a recliner watching TV just to wake up and do it all again the next day.
So how old would you say on average are these people? Just curious.
Yeah, I'd say on average the people I saw were 70s.
Okay.
So some were in their 60s, some were in their 80s.
Got you.
And even older and even younger occasionally. Yeah. But probably that's the average. And as a nurse, it got kind of discouraging because in nursing school I was taught, these chronic illnesses, and we'd learn about each one, and they'd say, it's just hereditary or it's the luck of the draw, and there's nothing people can do about it to prevent it. But and when I was visiting them in their home or talking to them on the phone, because that's what a lot of case management is, it was discouraging because I couldn't turn them around. I couldn't return them to their previous level of health.
Yeah.
I could just help them understand what their medications were for. Sometimes they're on 15 to 20 different medications. I could take their vital signs. I could call the doctor if there was an urgent issue. But was really no going back to a previous level. And I just started thinking, I don't want to end up there.
Yeah.
I don't want my family to end up there. There's got to be something that we can do. And so I started researching. And I mean, we all hear about, well, you have to eat healthy and exercise and you'll be fine. But I had tried to do that. And I found myself 40 pounds overweight. I had back pain. And this was when I was in my 40s, late 40s. Back pain that sometimes kept me from doing the things that I wanted to do. I had cystic acne that would pop up and be really painful and embarrassing. I had eczema that would come and go. I had seasonal allergies. So for periods of time during the year, I was taking a Zyrtec every day. And I just thought, oh, these things are so annoying, and what can I do? And so I started researching and trying to figure out how to help myself and prevent myself from ending up like my patients.
Yeah.
And so I did a lot of reading and studying, and I started implementing small changes in the way that I lived my life. And I was able to overcome every single one of those things that were bothering me.
Wow.
I lost the weight, and all those other things with the symptoms went away. I haven't had to take a Zyrtec once for years, and no more eczema or acne, and great energy levels. And I'm 62 now, and every day I'm either playing pickleball or I'm hiking or I'm riding my e-bike.
Yeah, part of the reasons you moved to St. George,
yeah,
right?
especially since we moved to St. George, right? And so I really started to think, wow, I want to share this information with people because I want to change that trajectory that I think so many Americans are on.
Yeah.
And so I decided I want to get some more education and learn as much as I can about health, wellness, how to create it, and how to coach people through that process, how to walk with them step by step through that process. So I searched out some schools, and I really liked the Institute for Integrative Nutrition.
Okay.
That's the school I enrolled in. So I did that and received my certification. And I think it's the best decision I've ever made. Now I have the best job ever.
That's awesome.
Because I get to see people making those changes and turning things around.
Well, and in a business, that's extremely important too. I mean, not in all businesses. It's important in your business that you're able to provide that. Needs not the right word. It should be the right word, but it's not.
Yeah.
Like you're able to provide that to people, and keeping that going is where it's going to keep pushing you and pushing you and pushing you, I feel like, because you're going to keep on seeing results. Does that make sense?
Right. And I feel like there's so much health information out there. Like if somebody wants to get healthy, they can go on the internet, but it's overwhelming because there's conflicting information. You know, you should eat low carb. No, you should eat low fat. You know, you should not eat. You know, you should eat every 2 hours.
Yeah.
There's just all this conflicting information. And I feel like a big part of my role is helping people sift through all of that and find out what's best for their body because we're all different.
Sure. Yeah, that's interesting because what's going on right now in politics, they're wanting to group us all into the same thing and make us all do the same thing. But we'll get on that later, I'm sure. Okay. One thing I wanted to talk about when you said that there's 70 is the average age, first thing that popped in my head was, so we work our whole lives till we're, late 60s to retire.
Right, yeah.
And then, that's what's waiting for a lot of people.
Yeah.
That sounds awful.
It's awful, yeah.
And so that's what you're really focused on is hey, there's things that you can do.
Yes.
You have the information, you could cater it to a person. I think that's important.
Yeah. There's so much that people can do, and they either don't understand it or they're too overwhelmed by everything out there. I think that's my
I was like, is that me? Yeah. So how many I want to call them patients. How many clients do you currently have, or how many people are you working with?
Currently I have about 10 clients.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So do you prefer to keep it small so it's a little more, I don't know if intimate's the right word,
Well,
but
it's always going to be intimate, but I'm in the process of growing it.
okay.
So I'm I've developed a group coaching course,
Okay.
and I'm about to launch that.
Awesome.
So far, all of my clients have been one-on-one, and that's very effective for a lot of people. But some people thrive in a small group setting, like 5 or 6 people, because they can learn from other people's experiences. So I'm getting ready to launch that, and I think that's going to be able to help even more people.
So how does that work?
So we would all get on a Zoom call.
Okay.
And it's an 8-week course, and we cover 8 different topics, and then they will have homework and then an opportunity to share the following week how they did. They'll be assigned an accountability partner that they can work with together and say, you know, how'd you do today? They can check in with each other every day. And they have some homework, like I said, and then it's going to have a Facebook group so everyone can be sharing and talking about their experiences.
That's awesome. So
yeah, I'm excited about it.
I mean, how many groups are you thinking you're going to have or plan on have, or is just infinity?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's...
and this is
I want to have a good life too. I want to have time to
that's
do
what I was just
do
gonna
my
say.
activities. So it would depend on how many private clients I had and then how much time I had for the group. And if it was very successful and people seemed to like it, then
Sure.
I probably would add more.
So you'd just take a phone call a week and be in a group of 4 to 8 people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, basically, I could have 5 groups going and just meet with each one once a week.
You take one day really and go through that, or whatever day works. Yeah, I
And
like
then there's
that.
a lot of, they could interact with me personally too by email. And so I'd spend time doing that and interacting on the Facebook group too.
Yeah. I didn't want to narrow it down to be like, you got to work one day a week. And then that's not what I meant. I was just trying to put it together where you're not going to just run yourself out of time like I seem to do all the time.
Right. Well, and when I am expanding into the group coaching, that allows me to preserve some of my time and reach more people too.
Sure.
So,
are there other people in St. George doing this?
well, I went to a Women's Business Center course that they had for women entrepreneurs.
Okay.
And there were about 12 of us in the class, and one other person was also a graduate from my same school.
Oh, okay.
And she was doing it too.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't, I'm like, that's probably a huge need and probably not a lot of competition, really.
Yeah, like I didn't think that, like I wasn't worried that, oh no, there's another one in St. George, because so many people need it. Yeah.
Yes, the majority.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I almost feel like, so we had a doctor, and I'm going to butcher her last name. It's Dr. DeSebro. Mallory, did I say that right?
Desabro?
I think it's DeSebro.
Yeah.
Anyway, she's
something like that.
she's teaches yoga on the side.
Okay, I saw that one.
Yeah.
I watched that
And
one.
then we've had a couple health people in here, and I'm like, is my wife lining up these guests? Because they're always like, well, if you drink sodas, I'm over here like sucking on a Mountain Dew. And I'm always like, I feel like I'm going to get challenged every time.
That later. Yeah.
Well, let's kind of go into what your steps are without doing like a full counseling session here.
Yeah.
So someone comes to you. So what I'm trying to do is kind of chip away that someone that would be nervous to do it, someone that would have any hesitation. So I'm like, let's just be transparent, right? And just throw it out there. So what's the process of that?
So what I always do is I offer someone who's interested a free strategy session.
Smart.
So that lasts 45 minutes. I send them kind of a questionnaire, like a health history questionnaire, and it has some questions about health issues that they might have and health goals.
Okay.
And they fill that out and send it back to me, and then we have a call, usually a Zoom call. And we talk about their issues, we talk about their goals, and then I decide if there's someone I can help.
Okay, that was my next question.
Yeah, and they decide if they want
You're
to
a
work
fit,
with
yeah.
me. Yeah, so we decide together if we're a good fit to work together. And then if we are, then we start the next time we meet. And there's only been, one person that I didn't feel would be a good fit, and that was a person that had too many serious diseases right now.
Okay.
And I'm not there to take the place of a doctor.
Sure.
And manage medications and all of that kind of stuff. I'm there to catch you before you get to that point and help you avoid it. And I just felt she was too complex medically.
I got you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, like you're more on the preventative side of it and trying to get you healthy now before you get to that point.
Exactly.
Sure.
That's my whole goal, keeping people out of that need.
Well, it's funny with me. I was just talking to my wife the other night. Like, I mean, I'm a little chubby, right? I've always been a big dude. I love Mountain Dew. I really don't eat a lot, but when I eat.
Yeah.
And because I usually don't have time. I mean,
Right.
I was late coming to this, right?
Yeah.
So, and I've still got to go back to my store after we're done.
Man.
But I was telling her like, oh man, I might have lost my train of thought there. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah.
Keep talking.
Okay. So we decide we're a good fit, and then we start meeting, and I can work with them whether they want to meet weekly or every other week. For some people, every other week is a little bit more comfortable because it gives them longer to put into practice what we talk about that week. But some people are just like anxious. Let's get this going. I want to, take care of it right away.
Got you.
But once a week is as often as we would meet. And in the group coaching program, it will be a set discussion each week laid out by me ahead of time.
Sure.
When it's the one-on-one, we base it off what their health issues and goals are.
Okay.
And we start there, and we just work through different steps that they can take. And I give them the latest research on that particular issue or goal and how they can implement those steps into their life in a very simple way. I'm not about making this big chart and making it all complicated. Yeah. I want them to take one step at a time, get comfortable with that, and then add something else on top of that and just build. And the compound interest, what can happen with compound interest, just a little bit at a time, consistently, adds up to huge rewards. And it's the same with our health.
Got you. I remember what I was going to say. It's like I'm from a book standpoint or a doctor standpoint, I'm probably fairly unhealthy, but like I never get sick.
Yeah.
I run. I mean, there are days I only work 6 hours, but the majority of the time I'm 12 to 14 hour, plus days a week.
Lots of energy.
Yeah. And I'm always just go. So it always makes me think like, yes, I'm doing okay because I'm not getting sick or ran out or,
Yeah.
I'm not like, I do forget things. You can ask Mallory that. I'm always like, what time are we doing this today?
Well, I will just say that's great. And you're probably healthy. But there are some things that can happen inside that we won't ever notice until later.
Oh, I'm sure that's going on with me.
Yeah, and so I'll use my husband as an example. He has struggled with his weight for a few years, and this last time he went to the doctor, his A1C was 6.
I don't know what that is.
So
Break that down.
The A1C is a blood test that they do that shows you your average blood sugar over the last 3 months.
Okay.
So 5.7 to 6.5 is pre-diabetic.
Okay.
Below 5.7 is not. And then 6.5 and above is diabetic.
Got you.
So that's how they're diagnosing diabetics. So his A1C was right in the middle of the pre-diabetic. And I've been trying to coach him but it doesn't work so good with spouses.
Sure.
It's like he doesn't really, like, I don't work as a good accountability partner for him, because he's kind of like, I know you said that, but you won't hate me if I didn't do it. So
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. But he was so shocked that it was that high. He was like, nobody in my family had diabetes. I never thought I would have diabetes. But it had just been building and building over many years.
Sure.
So he can still get it down. It's not too late. He can still do it, and I think he's more motivated now. But
So you just cut sugar, or is it a lot more complicated than that?
No, it's not. It's not more complicated than that. It involves having a good chunk of time every day that you're not eating anything. So like stopping dinner, maybe stopping eating in the evening around 7 or 8, and not eating until at least 8 in the morning. So you give your body 12 hours at least for the blood sugar and the insulin to come down.
Got you. Makes sense.
And then when you are eating, keeping the sugar spikes more flat.
Okay.
And there's ways to do that. Even in eating carbs, there are ways to control that.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty simple, really, when you break it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very simple, but like a mountain.
Here we go.
Spike it.
This is the first thing I have drank a Monster this morning. So I'm sure you have something to say about that too, but I think that's the first sugar I've even had. I haven't even eaten anything today yet. So
Oh, man. Oh.
I know I must be a phenomenon, or I'm just gonna like crash because I'm 32.
Okay.
So I'm like, maybe when I'm 40, I'm just gonna fall off a cliff and crash.
yeah.
I don't know. Age. I was gonna ask you on age. Is there any age like group that you do work with? I mean, if someone brought a 12-year-old to you, is that? I'm just curious.
I could. Yeah,
Okay.
I could. And I have one client that's 32.
Okay.
And he's a man.
And he drinks Mountain Dew, and he's overweight, and he works.
He is overweight. He works a lot. He's in graphic design and designs websites and stuff like that.
Awesome.
But typically, because I'm a woman and I understand kind of what that was like for me, I tend to attract more women to my program. But I have coached men, and I could do a child. In fact, I would love to somehow get into the schools and do some teaching. You know, not to be hired or anything, but just to get the word out even younger. Like the younger people start to live this way, the better.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I'm sure that's doable. I'm just trying to think like, okay, if I'm sitting in high school and that happened, like what age do you think you would target if you did that?
Probably high school.
High school?
Yeah, I think high school.
Yeah, I mean, even into health class, because I think you're required now to have a health class. So yeah, that's not a bad idea.
I heard, I can't remember what podcast it was, but it had to do with, it was during my training. We had guest instructors that would come, and this was all online, but they would come and give discussions, lectures. And one of them talked about going into schools, and they talked to the kids. It was elementary school. Talked to the kids about the importance of eating like fruits and vegetables and not having a lot of sugar. And the kids were like, yeah, and and everything. And then they went back to their class, and the teachers were like handing out candy when they got their assignments done. So that person was saying, I think it's better if we start with the teachers.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
That's what I was like almost doing like kids and parents.
Yeah.
Like if you had something like that.
Right. It's got to be the parents first.
Yeah.
They have to understand it. But I think high school kids, they're making a lot of choices on their own outside the home that could impact them negatively. So.
Sure. Well, yeah, when you're in high school, you're invincible.
Yeah.
So you can eat, drink, do whatever you want.
Yeah, and it's just so fun. Everybody's doing all that stuff. And
yeah, when you were talking about spouses, my wife the other day when we were having this talk about me just being infinitely healthy, she was like, because I told her, I said, I should probably start, looking into some stuff. I wanted to do, we had Michelle Tanner on I don't know if you know her.
Yes.
So she just ran for city council, just got in, and she runs her own clinic, kind of doing some of the stuff pre-hospital care, I think is how she put it.
Okay.
But they do IVs.
Okay.
And I'm terrified of needles.
Okay.
But I'm like, I'm super tempted on going and just getting one of those B12s or whatever those vitamin IVs are.
Yeah, they're doing vitamin IVs now. It's crazy.
Have you ever done that or done anything with it?
I haven't done it, but I go to a nurse practitioner as my primary care person, and she does them in her clinic.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm still going to have to go do that. But so my wife said, you should go talk to Michelle. She's like, and I was like, well, I'm asking you, and she's
You're
like,
a nurse practitioner.
yeah, she says, you'll just probably take it better from Michelle. And so when you were saying that, I'm like, we just had this conversation.
I know. Same thing with my husband. Like, we've been talking and talking all this time, even before he had his blood drawn, and trying to get him on track with these things and not really having a lot of success. He goes to the doctor. The doctor says, you need to be on medication, but I'll let you try it on your own. I want you to come back in 4 months. So just the other night, he says to me, I really want to do this so that Dr. Muse isn't upset with me when I go back. And I'm like, well, what about me? So he's much more concerned with impressing the doctor.
That's funny. See, and I never think about it. I just go and I just go and I just go. And so like that day it just kind of hit me. And I was like, man, maybe I need to start changing something. And having a kid is part of that as well.
Makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like just tired and I mean, my back hurts. I don't know. I'm just like, I'm always in pain. And then I'm trying to run around with him and play with him. And then it just kind of hits you.
There's also a lot that has to do with stress and how that impacts us silently over time. So that's something to think about.
That's definitely me.
Yeah.
So my thing is cold sores on my lips.
You break out
when I'm like bad stressed, I get cold sores.
Yeah.
Shingles.
Oh.
Like I had shingles. I don't know. It's probably been like 4 or 5 months ago now. And I was like, I didn't even it hurt. But like when people talk about shingles, they're talking about this just excruciating pain. And like, it wasn't that way for me, but like I had like the bubbles and the rash and everything, you know? And like the only thing, it was on my stomach. So when I wore a seatbelt, it went right across it. And so that's what hurt.
Yeah.
But like, just like the pain, luckily, I'm not saying everyone else is a wuss. I'm just saying like, luckily that wasn't that for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, why do I'm 32. Like, why do I have shingles?
Shingles. Yeah. You can't even get a shingles vaccine till you're like 60.
And then it was like, stress is the number one cause of shingles. I'm like, oh, well, there you go. I don't know. It just comes with the territory, I guess. Anyway.
I was going to tell you, when you mention your son, that's one of the things I really work with my clients on is figuring out their why. So a lot of people will say, I want to lose weight because I want to be able to fit in the clothes I wore when I was in college.
Sure.
Or because I want to look good in a swimming suit. And so wherever they start in their telling me their reasons why they want to lose weight or get healthier in any way, I make them keep going deeper and deeper and deeper till they get to that really core reason why they want to be healthy. And, usually it's something like, I want to be able to play with my kids.
Yeah.
I want to be able to watch my grandkids grow up. I want to go on adventures with my wife or my husband. I don't want to be the one slowing the whole family down if we're on vacation. Those kind of things. Because if you just leave it at, I want to fit in the clothes I wore in college, when something comes up that's a little challenging, those are not strong enough motivation to push through.
Sure.
You're just like, I could wear a bigger size. Who cares?
I already have those other clothes anyway.
Yeah. It's not that big of a deal. I'm going to eat this candy bar. So,
when you're saying the swimming thing, I'm like other than like my friends that are guys, like I haven't been swimming and it's not because I feel like I'm overweight, but I'm just like, it's not I don't go swimming that
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
You know, like that wouldn't be a thing
But
for me.
you will when your kid, as
Yeah,
a kid's
that's
growing
true.
up, they want to go swimming. They love it, you
Yeah.
know, so. But yeah, I try to help my clients really get to that deep emotional connection to their why, and that helps them.
Have you read that book it's Simon, I don't know how to say his last name. It's Sinek or yeah, I think it's called What's Your Why. I think that's what it's called.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, well,
I'll have to
I'm
look
not
at
a
that.
big book guy,
Yeah.
but I listened to that on one of my, I was telling you earlier, I do mail routes with the post office. And so I do audiobooks all the time. And that was one I listened to. It's a good one.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
I think you already know what the cause of it is, right? Like, you know, the purpose, but it just kind of would give you more ammo to get down to that thing, if that makes sense.
Okay, that's a good one for me to look into. I spent so much time during my training. It was probably 6 to 7 hours a day, 5 days a week, taking in these modules and learning from the lectures and doing the homework. And I really wanted to continue in that learning mode once I graduated. So I've been ordering books that I have a lot of interest in.
Yeah.
And trying to continue that study so I can stay up to date and get the best health information, but also things like that.
Yeah.
Good motivation tools and things like that.
Yeah, I would see. I'm not a health book guy, but I mean, I've done a lot of motivation, business owner autobiographies, those kinds of things.
Okay,
But that's a
yeah.
good one to read. Is that one?
Okay, that's great.
I think I got us totally off track. But so then, I mean, where are you at from there? Is that kind of
Yeah, so we just
what's your
yeah,
why?
so we work through the processes and the steps, but I always start with that step.
okay?
Figuring out their why and getting them to make a real clear emotional connection to their why. And then, like I said, when it's a one-on-one coaching, I base what we discuss on what their goals are. And we just work through them that way. And for most people, 4 months, if they're doing every other week, 4 months is a good amount of time, about enough. But for other people, they want to renew and go longer because
Got
they've
ya.
gotten to a certain point and they know they need a little bit more hand-holding to get where they want to get.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool that you're able to provide that for people because, I mean, like you're saying, it's probably the majority of people, me included. So
Really, it is really the majority of people, unless people are very intentional already about their health. But most of us, and I was the same way before I got into this, we're just out living our life, having fun, and we're not really thinking about those things.
yeah,
Because we're not that worried about what's going to happen. But I've seen it enough that I know it will happen to people if they don't pay attention.
So what's your thoughts on, I saw this the other day, yesterday probably, all my days run together. There was a magazine, and I'm not picking on anybody here, I'm just curious. There was a magazine with an overweight woman on it, and I'm pretty sure the headline said, like, this is healthy.
Oh,
Like they're trying to like push that's okay to be like, and again, dude, I'm far
Yeah.
from in shape,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm just, my thought is what I'm trying to get out is putting that out there for, I imagine it was like a high school age person, geared towards them.
Yeah.
I think I don't want to drop names of magazines because I don't know them, but
Yeah.
that's the feeling I got from it. I was like, this
Right.
is something like a high school person will look at.
Yeah. Well, there's been, for so many years, even when I was a teenager, there's just been so much bombardment to young girls about what a perfect body looks like. And, there's the airbrushing and everything that they do to the magazines, and now the filters on social media. And girls start to think that they're not pretty or they're not normal if they don't look like what they see in magazines and on social media.
Yeah, that aren't real anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. So I hate that. I don't like that at all. That we should just show normal people. And so I don't like that part. But then there's kind of a trend right now about, love your body, how it is, accept your body.
It's a better way to put it. That's more of what the magazine was trying to get out there.
Yeah. And I'm all for that. And that's another thing I teach my clients is that we have to appreciate our bodies because they are constantly working for us. They are always trying to keep us healthy. No matter what we're doing, no matter what we're taking in, all of these things are going on behind the scenes for them to keep us healthy. Even when we're overweight, that's like, okay, well, you took in more than you needed, so I'm going to store it here so you'll have it for later.
Right.
If you're ever starving, So our bodies are always trying to help us. So we have to get to a point where we can be grateful for what our bodies have done and can do, even if they don't look like how we want them to look right now. So I try to have some time to focus on that and help people understand their body isn't working against them. It's working for them. And our bodies are miraculous in that they can heal themselves if we give them the right tools.
Okay.
So I like that part of that message, love your body, yes. But saying that someone who is overweight is healthy may or may not be true. It depends. Like someone can look thin and have a lot of internal visceral fat and things that are causing problems internally, and you would never know it by the way they looked. And you can have someone that might look a little heavier, but their insides are clean, and this is just an outside thing. So that kind of person is healthier than the skinny-looking person with that internal fat.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a mixed message, I think.
Well, I'm glad that you started there because I've also been on here trashing social media and how they put out what you're supposed to look like and like what you said.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm glad that you took it that route first because you're right. It's and I think you answered that perfect where it's like, well, you'll have to accept yourself and then we move forward and better it.
Yeah, you accept yourself and be grateful for what your body's doing right now. And then let's look at, are there ways that you can be even healthier?
Okay. Do you do anything on like because I think nutrition has to do with this, but like the mental side of anything, is there anything you can help out with those kind of?
Well, I do talk about stress and how to manage that because that is such a key factor.
There's a way to manage
in
it?
our health. There are several ways to manage it. Oh, we have so many discussions we can have. So we do talk about stress, and then I talk a lot about gut health, and that's like a whole topic that I could just talk about for hours because so much research has been done recently showing the relationship between good gut health and moods. There's a direct connection between the good bacteria that live inside of our gut and our moods. 80% of our serotonin is produced in our gut by these good gut bacteria.
Really?
So if that's out of balance, you're going to get anxiety and depression and other mood-related illnesses.
So how do you know? Is there something you can do to like test that?
Well, they say 80 to 90% of people in America have bad gut health.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah.
You don't need a test.
Yeah, it's basically something we all need to work on.
Got you.
Because our modern life does damage. So sugar, artificial sweeteners, additives in our processed foods, the chemicals they use, the artificial coloring that they put in those kind of foods, stress.
You just keep hammering me on that stress, don't you?
Gluten for some people. All of these things impact our gut health.
Okay.
And the good news is it's easy to turn around. It can be turned around and quickly. So, it's directly related to mental health.
I mean, is that like a supplement or something, or you just put a diet together?
It's the foods you eat.
Okay.
Some people, it's probiotics. So you can get that from foods. You can get it from a pill.
Okay.
It's just that the pills, some are effective the way they're created. It has to be strong enough to get through all the stomach. And then, so you have to be careful which ones you get. I personally just try to get the probiotics from foods. And that's things like sauerkraut,
Ugh.
yogurt.
I'm okay with yogurt.
Yogurt, unsweetened yogurt, though.
Yeah. Amanda's been weaning me off of that.
And kimchi, miso soup, kefir, those things that have active bacteria in them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to eat those kind of foods, but then you have to feed those bacteria once they're in there, and they eat fiber. So plant fibers, so fruits and vegetables and nuts and legumes. So that's how you get a healthy gut.
Got you.
And then you give your body a digestive break, like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Like at least 12 hours. And
so is that, I guess I've heard that called intermittent fasting. Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Intermittent fasting.
Like someone explained it to me that way, where it's like, well, you just sleep.
Yeah.
Like half of it's sleeping.
Yeah. Yeah. You're just giving your body a break.
Okay.
And some people call it time restricted eating.
Okay.
So if you're just eating within a certain window each day, then you're sure that you've got that break in between.
Okay.
Brings the blood sugar down, the insulin down, and it gives your gut time to heal.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Pretty simple.
Yeah.
And then you just have to eat sauerkraut and unsweetened nasty yogurt.
Yeah. I love unsweetened yogurt.
You?
I never did before, but I stir like some almond butter in it and some fruit, and it's delicious.
Yeah. I mean, I'll do fruit, but I'd rather not. I'd rather just the other stuff. The Amanda's, she hates when she doesn't hate it, but she's always comments when I refer to her on the podcast. But I mean, she's extremely active. Rock climbing, mountain biking, canyoneering, hiking, all of that.
Yeah.
I think that she's like crazy healthy.
Yeah.
And she gets a lot of that from her mom. Mm-hmm. So some of those things that you were naming, like, is it kefir? Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
I know that her mom has made that, and I think her mom and her younger sister were drinking that for a while.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have touched it, but it's funny because being around my in-laws is like, like this. I had never been to Zion.
Oh.
In how many years that I had lived there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Since I've 20 years, I'd never been there. And then I started dating my wife, and I think we went there like 3 or 4 times in like a couple of weeks. And because that's what they're into, the canyoneering and all of that.
Oh.
And so I was like, they've really broadened who I am.
Yeah, that's great.
And I remember I walked into their house one day when we were dating, and her mom was drying, had the little air dryer thing.
Like dehydrating food or, yeah.
And there was something on there, and I just grabbed it and like popped it in my mouth, and I like wanted to throw up. And I turned around and looked at her, and she was just like shocked. And I was like, what? And she was like, do you know what that was? And I think it was like kale or something. Like she was dead. Okay. And I was like, why would you just put that out there for anybody to eat? So my mother-in-law, Terry, she's broadened to me quite a bit.
Yeah. That's so good.
And green drinks, this is my green drink. So I always joke with her. I'm like, I've had my green drink today.
Yeah.
But I don't want to downplay what you're doing to serve the community with my jokes about being insecure.
Yeah, no, there's a lot that people can do. And even people that love Mountain Dew, there's also good things that you can add in. That's kind of one of my things too. I like to help people add things rather than take things away.
So what can I add to Mountain Dew?
Well, to your diet.
I was like, put some strawberries in there or what? Well, what's something I can add to my diet for counter that?
You can add probiotic foods.
So my unsweetened.
Yeah, your yogurt with fruit in it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to have to try that. Now Amanda's probably going to go buy it for me after she listens to this.
Yeah.
Well, we're almost to an hour.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to take another direction? Where do you want to go from here? I know we had touched on a little bit, because it's a topic with me, is with Corona going on right now, being able to have those preventative treatments, preventative habits. What's some things that you can talk about on that? I'm sure you have a list of things.
Yeah, that's a great question. I've been really discouraged at the way the messages that are being sent to people in our country. I don't know about other countries so much, but here we're just being told, get vaccinated and wear a mask. Get vaccinated and wear a mask. That's the only thing anybody ever mentions. Nobody says, get plenty of sleep, get outside and exercise every day, eat fruits and vegetables. There's no focus on preparing your body to defend the virus. And our body is actually the best defense, but we have to give it what it needs before it can perform that way. And so, yeah, that would be my prescription.
Yeah, I've told people, they're like, will you put a mask on? And I'm like, I have an immune system. And so that's kind of my comeback to people.
Yeah.
Will you put a mask on, please? I'm like, no, my body will just fight it off.
Yeah.
And if I get it, I'll still probably be okay. Mm-hmm. And then I'll just go on with my life.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially this latest variant, it's so mild for most people.
Well, and the way I understand it, and I don't know if you can comment on it or not, but it's more mild, but it's more transmissible as well, right?
Very contagious, yeah.
So my thought is, I'm like, why don't we all just try to get this one?
I know, right?
And
it's just a matter of time. Let's just get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I've also heard that I think if you had the original, whatever they're calling that, and then Delta, I think you can still get this one. But then, I'm not the guy to talk about on this. Maybe I shouldn't. But from what I understand, the research I've done, that's kind of, first they said you couldn't get it twice. So once you had Corona, you've had it.
Yeah.
And then Omicron, I don't even know how to say it.
Omicron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that one's come out now.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much further we're going to get down the alphabet, but yeah, they're saying that one's more mild, less mild, milder. My English teacher will be mad at me, but anyway, that one's not as hard to deal with, and then it's transferred more. So I'm like, let's get some herd immunity going.
Yeah. Why don't we all get it? We have 4 grown kids and 3 in-law kids, and each of those families has kind of had different levels of fear and not fear about COVID. And my son, who lives in Farmington, he's a school teacher, teaches junior high, and he was vaccinated. They had to be vaccinated. And he went, this whole time, he never got it. And his wife never got it, and they have a 1-year-old too. And they had been to our house a few times, and they didn't ever worry about wearing masks, and we just went out and did whatever it was we wanted to do. We went to movies and, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And they never got it, but a couple of weeks ago, we were up north babysitting some grandkids, and this son and his wife came, and my daughter, who lives in New York City, was here for the holidays, and so we were all together, and they took her to the airport that night to fly back, and she got a sore throat in the middle of that flight.
Oh.
And so I knew we had all been together, and sure enough, she tested positive a couple days later, And then my son and daughter-in-law and the baby came down with it and tested positive. So we're sure that that was Omicron.
But not you two?
But my husband and I had COVID in September, October. We're pretty sure we had the Delta. And we didn't get it. We didn't get Omicron.
So you went and got tested?
No, we never
you just
got
didn't
tested.
get symptoms?
Yeah, we didn't get sick.
Okay.
Yeah. So I feel like our natural immunity, if we're doing what we can to build it up, is going to be what's going to get us through. And if we're going to get it, let's just get it and get it over with.
That's what I think. I mean, it really has not changed my life much.
Yeah.
I work for myself, so that's a big thing. Like your son had to get it for work, I assume. And I had a little rant before we started about one of my jobs at the post office that they're making us wear masks again. And
Yeah.
I disagreed. And I mean, we can leave it at that. We had slight fireworks. So I don't know. I struggle with it. I think it's a hot topic. I try not to bring it up much on the podcast because people don't like, you hear about it enough.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to volunteer your time to listen to the podcast and get blasted with it as well.
Yeah. I heard somebody on social media the other day say, I'm through playing pandemic.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel. I'm done.
I'm
Let's
so
just
over
move on.
Yeah, I know. I have thought about where my wife's in healthcare, like what she ethically should do and what she decides to do and what her work's going to try and force her to do and all of that. Yeah. And so that's really more on my mind than anything.
Yeah.
And the only place I've worn a mask a handful of times when I pick up my son from daycare because he's at the hospital. And when I go pick him up, they make me put one on.
Yeah.
And that's the one place I'm like, okay, like I don't want to cause ripples for my wife, so I'll just try and put one on.
Yeah. And maybe in that kind of setting, there are more people there that are compromised. And if a mask helps, who knows if it does? But if it does, then why not?
So Will, my son, when my wife was pregnant, she got COVID. And then, so when Will was born, I'm like, I'm not a bright guy, but I'm like, I'm pretty sure he should be immune to it now, right? And so we were like kind of wondering how that would work.
Yeah.
And then he ended up testing positive like a week before Christmas.
Oh.
A week and a half before Christmas.
Sick? Was he having symptoms?
Yeah. The kid's been sick for a year.
Yeah.
So,
they always have a runny nose, right?
He's had like this lingering cough most of his life, runny nose, but he was like fever.
Okay.
And so Amanda went and got him tested positive, but they had a kid test positive already in the daycare.
Okay.
And so then he goes there and then he ends up getting it. And so I asked them, I said, I just don't understand. Like, so Corona's already ran through the daycare. My kid got it from here.
Yeah.
We're all over it and we're fine. We have no symptoms. But then I still have to come in and wear a mask, even though like this is, and so I'm like, shouldn't that be my choice? Because like this is obviously where it is. It's like ground zero. And I'm sure the people at the front desk there love me because I give them a hard time.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's a hard thing. But I feel like you do. I'd like it just to run through everyone now that we're down to this mild variant. Let's just get it and move on.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see that happening, but I hope it does.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, unless you got something else you want to, I think an hour is great.
Yeah, there was one topic I just wanted to touch on because the very beginning you mentioned about how 70 was this common age where I saw these issues. And I did a webinar last week for the Huntsman Senior Games.
Okay.
They have a Living Your Best Life webinar series, and they have some great topics, like estate planning and how to have good relationships. And then I did this one on health. But one thing I talked about in there, because it was so fascinating.
Oh, so you presented.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thanks. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
It's going to be up on YouTube too. It's not out there yet. But one thing that I found so fascinating during my training was when I learned about the blue zones. Have you ever heard about
I
the
don't
blue
know that.
zones? So they are areas on the earth that are longevity hotspots.
Okay.
So places where people live to be 100, 110, 115 commonly.
Wow.
And that's not the good part. The good part is that they live completely healthy until they die. They're fully engaged in with their family, their community, their hobbies. They're just healthy.
Yeah.
And so National Geographic sent out a reporter and like a team to live in each of those zones for a period of time. And they observed them, they took notes, they watched what they ate, how they lived. And they came back, they compiled everything. And he's written a book now. It's called Lessons Learned from the Blue Zones.
Okay.
And anyway, they narrowed it down to about 7 things that they all had in common. And that's a good thing to study, because each of those things, even though we don't live in kind of these isolated areas, one of them was Okinawa, Japan, so that's an island. But one of them is Loma Linda, California.
Really?
Yeah, and that's a high population of Seventh-day Adventists, and they have things in common with these other blue zones as far as lifestyle. So it's really interesting. But we can move that common age of 70 ending up in a recliner. We can eliminate it. We can not only move it to a higher age, we can eliminate it. So It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I had two great grandmas that lived. One was 101, and then the other one was 99.
Yeah.
And the 101, my great grandma Moss, she lived by herself.
Yeah.
Until like months before they put her in a home. Months before. I've always been like, man,
See,
I'm
you've
just
got
starting
some of
here.
those genes. Yeah.
I'm like 32. I'm only a third way through.
I know. And sometimes I used to think, oh, I don't want to live that long.
I think that all the time.
Know? But imagine what you could do. Like, you could have all the things you feel like you don't have time to do now, you can do later because you're going to have time.
Sure. Yeah, if you feel good.
All those fun things. If you're healthy.
If you're not in a recliner.
Yeah, you can do those things. We just don't want to live to 100 in a recliner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I often talk about this because more for me than anything, but my wife one day, and I think I've mentioned it on here, but one day I asked her, or I was kind of poking fun at her, I guess, to be honest. And she was saying, so I run the finances, I run everything at our house. I mean, she pretty much goes to work, comes home, goes and plays, takes care of the kid,
Yeah.
she's, but I take care of most everything. And she said, we were talking about finances one day, and she's like, I don't care. I don't want to know. As long as I have enough money to go on vacation, I don't care what you do.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, hold on. Like, you don't care what it, and she says, I pretty much work just so I have enough money to go on vacation. And it hit me. I was like, and so I'm kind of making fun of her. I'm like, so the only reason you go to work and you had all these years of education and, all this stuff just so you can go on a vacation every now and then. And she's like, yeah, why do you work so much? And I'm like, I don't know.
Why do I work so much?
And I'm like, what else am I going to do? And so when you talk about, doing that stuff later or living in a recliner, and I'm like, I don't even know what I would want to go do. And the more I think about it, the more I'm like, that's kind of sad.
Yeah.
Your husband's at a golf course and I'm sure he enjoys that. And,
right. He
and
does.
I'm like, I just work. I don't know anything else. Like the one thing I do I've been trying to be better at is, like I'm not a morning person. And so I'll stay up all night, but I don't want to get up early.
Yeah.
And with William now, he's in bed at like 7 or 8.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to get home, before he's in bed.
Yeah.
And that's become something that I'm trying to be better at. And it's important to me. Like the other night, I think I got home and, well, I know I got home. The other night I got home and he was already in bed and Amanda was going to bed 9 o'clock. I don't remember. And I was sitting outside. I don't know, I was eating, whatever. And I hear him crying. And usually we just like let him cry it out and go to bed. And I was like, I'm going to go get him. And so I walk in there and like, well, what's up, man? You know, like take him out of his crib. And then a couple minutes later, Amanda comes out and she's like, what are you doing? I already put him to sleep. And I'm like, dude, he wanted to come out and play.
Come out. I need some time with him. Yeah.
And I'm like, and that's when I was like, I need to make more of a focus to be home before he goes to sleep.
Yeah. Spend that time with him every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was probably last night or the night before, I was carrying him into his room and I'm holding him and I'm like, when did this guy get so big? And I'm like, he's growing so fast. And everyone says that. And you don't know it until you see it. Yeah. And so, that's you're right. That's probably my why.
Yeah.
I know my wife would be fine. Like if something ever happened to me, I mean, sure, she'd probably be sad, I would imagine, but she is self-sufficient enough that it wouldn't be catastrophic, right? Does that make sense?
Right.
But Will, I'm like, I feel like I really need to be there for him. And one thing I do want to say with me growing up, so we've had a lot of talk on here about my dad. So he'd committed suicide a couple years ago. Towards my parents getting divorced, his mental state was just declining rapidly. And so I touch on that a lot because we go into a lot of mental health things and depression. And so I feel like I need to give him some kudos every now and then, right?
Yeah.
So growing up, he was a great dad. He was big into sports, more baseball than anything. And so he coached all of our baseball teams.
Nice.
He was a UPS man for years and years and years. So he had Saturdays off. And so game day, dad was always there, right? And probably coaching.
Yeah.
And so I think about that and I'm like, I want to, you know, if Will chooses to go that route or shows interest in sports, like I want to be able to be there to do that with him.
Right.
And work schedule wise, I could move that around to make that a commitment for me. But I'm like, health wise, you know, so I've got a bad back. I've had a bad back. Post office kind of ruined me. Compressed discs. Like my wife showed my scan, whatever they are, to one of the back doctors at the hospital. And they were like, who is this? How old is this guy? And he's like, he's got to be like 60 or 70. And Amanda's like, this is my husband. He's 28. Yeah. And so just backstory that, like, it's getting to be more in my thoughts of like, okay, maybe I should start focusing more on this if I want to be, you know, take that example my dad had for me and put that to Will.
Yeah, right. He will always remember those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my dad was always there, but he was usually pretty intense. So that might be part of the chain that I can change a little bit.
Right. You can take the parts you liked about it and work on the other parts.
Exactly. Yeah. But being there is what's important to me, to be able to do that.
And you want to be there just to watch too.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that means a lot to the kids too, but being able to be there and coach or just practice with them at home, that's important too.
Yeah. Yeah. And even just being active in general. I mean, my dad was usually pretty good at, like, I was into mechanics, and so he would sit down on a Saturday and we'd fix the lawnmower, you know, and so he's really good about just being there and doing things like that. Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, what am I going to do with him? And he's one, so it's kind of hard to decide that, but I'm like, I want to have these options open to where, like, I think it's going to be natural that he's going to be into rock climbing and canyoneering and all these things.
He's going to learn all those things.
Yeah. And I don't, like you were saying, being the guy that slows the group down, right? Yeah. And so when you said that, it kind of hit me deep because I was like, that's probably going to be me.
Well, you worry about, like you mentioned, about how it wouldn't be catastrophic for your wife if you died. But it's not always death. You know, sometimes it's just the slowing down or the recliner that takes over. Bound. And, you know, my husband will joke and say, when we go to Disneyland, I want you to push me around in a wheelchair. But I would, like, he thinks that would be Nice, relaxing.
Sounds awesome.
I would hate that, you know. You don't want your wife pushing you around.
Well,
in
don't
a
you get
wheelchair.
like to the first of the line and
Yeah.
stuff?
Yeah. Okay, maybe Disneyland's a bad example.
You're like going through the zoo.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to push them around.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so I think it's natural going through being a new dad,
Yep.
being 30, having, I mean, like, I'm trying to remember. I had this quote and I was talking to a paramedic and he said, how much pain, like how much pain are you in right now? And he was talking to me. How much pain are you in right now? And I'm like, well, it's like fairly normal. I'm probably like a 5. And he's like, normal's 0. And I was like, it might be for you.
Oh man.
And so like it kind of hit me like, so other people live without being in
Yeah.
pain and have
Right.
energy and don't have to hit Mountain Dews and Monsters all day. And,
Right.
and
Right.
yeah. So yeah. So again, I'm just trying to reiterate and build that it's important
Yeah.
for you to be out there spreading the knowledge that you are.
Yeah,
And it
and
sounds like
I
we
don't-
should probably have a sit down.
I don't want to make this a bummer of a conversation
No.
because my main message is it's easy to fix.
Yeah.
Like you're on a path, many of us were on a path, and the slightest little change makes such a big difference.
Right.
Just like an airplane making just that slight adjustment, you end up hundreds of miles in a
Yeah.
different direction.
That's awesome. I wonder, I'm trying to think of how you could put something together, and maybe you have, for that person that, like, well, let's just say me, like, one, I don't feel like I'd have the time to like sit
Yeah.
down and do anything.
Right.
And so I'm like, what kind of program could you put together where it's like, hey, this is the basic,
Yeah.
and I mean, whether you like sell it as a course or it's just information that someone can find on your website, I'm thinking that would cater more towards me, where it's like, hey, here's
Yeah.
this little
I'm too
basic
busy to-
information. Read through it when you're,
Yeah.
I don't know, before
Yeah.
you go to sleep. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, right now, all I have that I'm giving out for free is a junk food cleanse
Okay.
cheat sheet. But I have had a thought of turning my 8-week coaching program, like condensing to the most important parts and making it a course. But I'm not quite there yet. But I think that would be a good idea for people like yourself that are busy.
So was that the junk food cheat sheet?
Yeah.
Is that like on the website that you can just
Yeah.
go find?
Yeah, they can find it.
Your website
my
is what?
website is castlerock-wellness.com.
Okay.
And I have a Facebook group called Healthy Vibrant Life.
Okay.
And I interact with people there. They can ask me questions. If they're having a specific issue, I can answer questions. I
So you're
give
pretty active
health
on that?
tips.
Okay.
Yeah. Tips and tricks and food of the week, what this food has, what it does for your body, and recipes and stuff like that
Awesome.
on that Facebook group.
That's great. Instagram, anything else?
Instagram, I'm on there, but not as active
Okay.
as that Facebook group.
Awesome.
And people can just reach out to me on Facebook if they want to have one of those free strategy sessions.
And that's under the business name or?
That's under you can find me just at Kelly Welker
Okay.
on Facebook.
So if
Yeah.
someone wanted to just reach out, just your personal account,
Yeah. And on my website, there's
like a contact
how
me.
to book a consultation on there.
And the
Yeah.
first one's free.
Yeah.
No pressure, no
45
nothing.
minutes, no pressure. We just talk about their issues, their goals, and I decide if that's something I can help them with, and they decide if they want help.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
This
It's
has
been fun.
it's been a good conversation. Now I feel like we need to sit down and have a talk.
We can do that when you have time.
Yeah, there
right?
you go.
Yeah.
Sundays, that's about it. Especially after football's over, I'll have a little more time on Sundays. All right.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks
so
for
much.
coming. Appreciate it. Thanks for giving up a couple hours for us and
Yeah, it's been
some
really
education and
I'm just excited to get the word out.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to reach out, you've got to give us your website one more time.
Castlerock-wellness.com.
Okay. So reach out on that. There's also Facebook. And if you have any questions for me, I can get you in touch with her. You can message the Instagram, our podcast Instagram. Mallory, I shouldn't say we, Mallory's very active on that. So if you guys do have any questions, and we've fielded questions on there, you can just reach out to that. Whether people have asked me to say this. So if you want to be a guest, reach out to us. If we feel like you're a fit for the podcast, we'll 100% bring you on. Another thing is, like, I pay for this. We've thought about putting like a donation thing out there, but like, I don't want anything from, like, I just want people to sit down and spend time and be educated. But people have told me, like, you're crazy, not because there's people that want to help, but they don't know how. And so we're discussing of putting a donation thing together. I don't know. It's not that important to me, but people who want to help will have access to be able to do that.
Yeah. And there might come a time when you can't just do it without some financial help. So.
Yeah. Yeah. If the post office keeps acting up, that might be a real thing. All right, guys. Thanks for spending a couple hours with you, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.